Let me read another excerpt from the book, and Bob Shrum, I think you will be interested in this one, regarding George McGovern. April 25, 1972, George McGovern captured the Massachusetts primary. The next day, I phoned Democratic politicians around the country who agreed with my assessment that blue-collar workers voting for McGovern did not understand what he really stood for. One was quoted in the 4th paragraph, Evans Novak column, April 27th. Quote, one liberal senator feels McGovern's surging popularity depends on public ignorance of his acknowledged public positions. The people don't know McGovern is for amnesty, abortion, and legalization of pot, he told us. One middle America, Catholic middle America in particular, once they find out he's dead. With that, McGovern was the AAA candidate who supported amnesty, abortion, and acid. The AAA label was to haunt McGovern into the autumn campaign against Nixon. I had not been in touch with my source, Senator X, for 30 years. When I began working on these memoirs in 2003, I wrote him. Now Mr. X retired from the Senate, asking whether I could identify him. His answer was swift and succinct. Dear Bob, what I told you, it was off the record, and I still consider it that way. Well, since that time, Mr. X, Senator X, died, and he turned out to be, Bob Novak?
Thomas Eagleton. Mr. McGovern's brief running mate, he was picked for as his vice presidential nominee, later resigned from the ticket, but that was a secret that was kept until his death. And a lot of people said I had made up the name. I had gone to Tom Eagleton and asked him if I could clear myself since the campaign was long over, use his name. He said, oh, he had to run for re-election. The McGovernites would kill him if they knew he had said that, but it was Tom Eagleton.
Boy, do I wish he had let you publish his name. Then he never would have been picked as vice president. Because the two things that happened to George McGovern, two of the things that happened to him were the label you put on him, number one, and number two, the Eagleton disaster. We had a messy convention, but he could have, I think, in the end, carried 8 or 10 states, remained politically viable, and Eagleton was one of the great train wrecks of all time. You know, he had his 85th birthday here yesterday in a big celebration, and 35th anniversary of the nomination. And I'm glad I was in the McGovern campaign. I didn't get to walk the corridors of the White House, but I didn't have to walk into a federal prison either.
Well, happy birthday to George McGovern, turning 85. He was on this program talking about the Eagleton situation. Here's George McGovern back in 1972.
There was no way under the law that I could have forced Senator Eagleton to step down had he not agreed to do so. And we talked about it. I told him it was my judgment that it was in the national interest that his medical history not become a major issue in this campaign. There were too many other serious issues that we needed to discuss, of the kind that we've been talking about here today. He accepted my judgment on that. He did step down from the ticket.
As you know, Senator Eagleton was treated for depression by shock therapy about 10 years before he was selected. Senator McGovern saying he couldn't kick him off the ticket, but he could encourage him to resign.
I think it's interesting why he would make that comment to me. He really believed that about McGovern, because although Eagleton was anti-Vietnam, he was a liberal, strong liberal voting record, but he was a dedicated pro-life Catholic who, in fact, during the succeeding 13 years he served in the Senate, had sponsored a constitutional amendment to overturn Roe v. Wade.
But, Bob, you raise an interesting point. Just because someone dies, does that mean that you can then identify
That's my take on it. It's a take on by a lot of people. I think that eliminates that thing. We can. I hope that both McGovern, both Tom Eagleton and I go to heaven. We can argue it out there, but I do believe that removes the responsibility.
And you also identify people saying, well, the issue's no longer relevant or it's no longer important, so I felt it'd be okay to identify people.
That's controversial. I thought I would write this memoir as my departure out of Washington and my retirement. A lot of people would like to see me retire, but I am not retiring. I'm never going to retire, and so I do reveal some sources. I keep some. I ask some of them. I have a lot of permission on some to use their names.
Al Hunt, should you reveal a source after they die?
I think that's a tough call. I think probably it depends on the circumstances, and by and large, I would say that's okay. I would have trouble revealing your source before they're dead if they don't release you.
Bob Shrum, Mike Murphy, have you two ever been sources?
For Bob Novak?
No. Gambling in the casino? No. You should always reveal source for both of them.
Here it is. Would you like Novak to reveal things that you said to him after you're dead?